59 according to Google. Welcome, everybody. It is Tuesday, October 12th, 2021. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Warren Town Council. We're going to start this evening, sadly again, as we started last month's meeting. If you would all rise for a moment of silence for the loss of a Warren resident and Providence firefighter, Christian Netto. Thank you, and if you'd all stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We start the meeting with an opportunity for anybody from the public to come forward and share something important, make an announcement, ask a question. No action can be taken. Is there anybody here who has something they would like to share with us this evening? Very well, hearing none, we will get on with the business of the evening. This evening, we're going to start recognizing 2 Warren businesses who have achieved the status of excellence in business. We have certificates of recognition for them, and they say, may it be known that Grace Barker Health is hereby awarded the certificate of recognition with the congratulations of the Warren Town Council for their highly successful, innovative business, which consistently practices exemplary corporate citizenship. We're also recognizing this evening another Warren business. May it be known that Jade Engineering Plastics is hereby awarded this certificate of recognition with the congratulations of the Warren Town Council for their highly successful, innovative business, which consistently practices exemplary corporate citizenship. Presented this 12th day of October 2021 by myself, Carrie M. Cronin, President, John Hanley, Vice President, Councilman Joseph D. Pasquale, Councilman Brant Heckert, and Councilman Steve Kalenda. We also have with us this evening to say a few words Michelle Hughes, who is the president of the East Bay Chamber of Commerce, who can tell us a little bit about why these 2 businesses have been recognized. Michelle. Thank you very much. I apologize. I should note we are short one member of the council this evening. Councilman Di Pasquale was not able to make it tonight. Next, generally, we would have interviews. We do have in red on the agenda for anybody following along at home, the Voluntary Historic District Committee Board of Appeals. That committee is in sort of a limbo state. I believe by next month we will have an agenda item. Mr. DeSisto? Yes, we will have an agenda item to discuss the future of that board. Yes, that is so. Next, we have the acceptance of minutes. If everybody has reviewed the minutes, if they are in good working order.
I will make a motion. We accept the minutes of Tuesday, the 14th of September, 2021.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's passed. Next. Oh, you know what? I must back us up. I had meant to do this after public comment and before recognition. I omitted it, but in honor of the Indigenous Peoples' Day that was celebrated all over the country yesterday, I would like to read our land acknowledgement statement. And so I will. Welcome to Soams, the ancestral home of the Pokanoket people for 10,000 years prior to settler colonization. We pay tribute to the tribal elders and people of this community who served and continue to serve as stewards of the land and waterways of Rhode Island and Massachusetts. We recognize the unique and enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous people and their traditional territories. We acknowledge that our community was a part of the larger ancestral homeland of the Pokanoket Nation. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder of our ongoing efforts to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Pokanoket people for the benefit of the lands and waters of Soams. Now we continue with the consent agenda, P1 and P2. Does anybody have any questions about either?
Motion we pass the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All righty. Next, we have ordinance 01, chapter 18, streets and sidewalks, article 1 in general. This is the second reading, section 18-3, riding, etc., animals, bicycles, etc., on sidewalks, etc. Does anybody have any questions about this? I have two.
Well, yeah, actually, I do have a question about the penalties for violating this ordinance. C, the last item on this ordinance, it shall be unlawful to park, store, block pedestrian access in full or in part any form of motorized mode of transportation or on any town or state sidewalks. So I'm just wondering how penalties work.
Well, if it's my understanding, if this is going on our municipal court like a parking tag, that the fine schedule is on the parking tags. You could correct me on that if I'm misinformed, but when the chief was discussing this ordinance, I think that's what they were going to use.
That's correct. Just having they're the safest, as what you just said. Yeah. That's correct. It's treated the same as a traffic violation.
So are you following that, right? So on the parking, whatever they're using, like the parking schedule, fines, fees.
So if we're an obstruction, we treat it as a parking ticket?
Not a parking ticket, but like a speeding ticket.
A speeding ticket?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do we have a
That's
dollar
speed.
amount? What's that? Is there a set dollar?
No, it's not speed. it's a similar ticket with a similar penalty. But it's not like you were going too fast on the sidewalk.
Yeah, the violation would be.
It's a violation. It's like a lane roadway violation, things of that nature.
So it'd be like a $25 ticket or something like that.
No, it's 50. Yes.
All righty. My two questions. One, at section 18-3, riding, et cetera, animals. So the animals refer back to a time when. I don't want anybody to misconstrue that, say, for instance, a dog is not allowed to I know it doesn't say so in this section of the ordinance, but having animals up there at the top, what exactly do animals refer to?
Horses.
Horses. Okay, so let it be known that horses are not allowed on downtown sidewalks. My other
Now,
I
question,
beg your pardon.
If someone was walking a dog and they had the leash and it was obstructing the sidewalk, that would be a problem to me.
Well, especially sometimes some people have 2 and 3 dogs.
Correct,
And
yeah.
so it becomes an entangled mess.
Yeah.
Really.
So, yeah, if somebody obstruct, you can't obstruct a Saint Bernard in a 12-foot leash. You can take a lot of people out with that.
Yes, but it's not covered under the ordinance. It's ride, drive, or lead any horse or cattle.
Okay.
So it does not apply to dogs, even if you have multiple dogs. That would be under obstructing the sidewalks in another section.
Okay.
and if we want to bring that up, we would have to delve back into it. My other question, and maybe edit that could be made to this, today a good citizen, a law-abiding citizen, came to me to ask if when he has traveled to, say, for instance, the library or to visit me at my store, traveling on his e-bike, which is the same size as a regular bike, and he walks it on the sidewalk and parks it in front of my store or parks it in front of the library, for instance. Does that count here? Because we want to be clear that an e-bike cannot be ridden on a sidewalk. It is a street, it's only appropriate on the streets, but we don't want to dissuade or prevent or make unlawful a person who uses an e-bike as a mode of transportation that is the same size as a traditional bicycle from parking it up against a building or using traditional, bike law. kind of.
So again, Tony, I think the ordinance goes into if it's obstructing or blocking. Right.
Yeah.
So if the vehicle, the e-bike is parked, indicated, it'd be fine. It'd be no different than parking any other bicycle.
That's correct, but subsection C of the proposed ordinance is, it shall be unlawful to park, store, or block pedestrian access in part or full by any form of motorized mode of transportation on any town or state sidewalks. That doesn't include a bicycle. Subsection C.
No, I'm reading that and I'm looking that. So it shall be unlawful to park, store, or block pedestrian access in part, full, or any form. So as long as the e-bike, in this case, is parked in a way that doesn't block pedestrian access in part or full, then it's fine.
Could we just change that or to and?
Yes.
Pretty simple fix, because that means you can park it as long as it's not blocking the access.
An e-bike, but not a motorcycle. Because there's no way to park a motorcycle on a sidewalk without making it an obstruction.
Right. So if it said and block pedestrian access, it means you have to do both.
Because it's a conjunction, that means that it's a blockage.
Okay,
So it would only be a violation if it blocked pedestrian access.
Even in park, meaning it would have to be not parked
Correct.
horizontal. Yeah, I mean, it's like,
That's correct.
I feel very confident in the Warren Police Department that I think they'll be able to differentiate between what is and what is not a violation. And then, again, as I spoke many times on this ordinance, it's more about compliance than it is of the issue.
and I said that very same
Yeah.
thing to this good citizen. I said I would find it highly
Yeah,
surprising if the Warren Police were to ticket an e-bike if it were parked in a mindful way.
Okay, I hate to do this, but I've got to bring up two things.
Yes,
It does not go to the language that you have before you. But under section 31-19-11 of the general laws, what you're going to need to do if this ordinance is enacted is to just post that the riding of bicycles and these motorized bikes not forbidden on sidewalks. That's something you should do anyway, but it is a state law requirement.
Would it be good just coming in and out of town, or would we have to do it every so many feet?
You don't have to do it so many feet, just so long as it is done properly and as you say, into and out of town. I would recommend that if the ordinance is enacted, that you refer the matter to
Traffic Commission.
the traffic advisory group
Yep.
to just place appropriate signage. And you know what? That's a good enforcement thing. It goes to what Councilman Kalenda said about compliance. That's the first thing. The second thing is I'm not as familiar with this as I should be, but part of this bike path emergency exit is going to be on a sidewalk halfway, actually the entire Warren Bridge. I don't know if that's going to be denominated as a sidewalk by the state after this project goes through, or if it's going to be categorized as an extension of the bike path. That's something for the traffic advisory group to take a look at too, just to make sure. And in any event, you should probably have some signs posted there too.
Well, right now it does say to walk your bicycle
Correct.
across when on the sidewalk. Not that everybody obeys that.
So are we staying with this or are we changing this to the end?
I recommend you go with the end. I think that solves the problem.
I will make a motion, we change the ordinance 18-3C to read, it shall be unlawful to park, store, and block pedestrian access.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now I will make a motion that we pass the second reading of 18-3 and we refer it to the traffic committee for posting of signs as appropriate.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All righty, I am going to recuse myself at this time and turn it over to Vice President Hanley.
We have an application for a yearly entertainment license from Discover Warren Walkabout. Is there anyone here representing them? Okay. This is the same, basically the same thing they applied for last year, Bob? Okay, I don't really have any issues.
Nothing, no.
Grant,
No, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
all in favor?
Let's click on the trigger.
Aye. No opposed?
You can go back.
License is passed.
Next, we have correspondence. There are 4 items. Is there anything here that anybody would like to pull for discussion? Hearing none, we will move on to old business. OB1 is discussion and action regarding the American Rescue Plan spending plan. We have a new document here in front of us, as well as a bunch of information provided by Manager Michaud. I will turn it over to Manager Michaud now.
Thank you. I'm going to stay over here so I can be near the computer if that's okay with you. So you've received a lot of information about this in the past. So this is kind of the culmination of the work we've been doing recently on the topic of the American Rescue Plan. You'll have to forgive me if there's a little repetitiveness, but I do want to just repeat a few of the most important points of this program. The first thing I'm going to do is to introduce a few people that are in the audience, just so that you know who they are. We've been working with HCH Enterprises on this project, and 3 of the representatives are here in the audience. We have Steve, we have Constantine, and we have Robbie. So just want to acknowledge them and the great work that they've done to help us out with trying to figure out all of the myriad of requirements that come along with this funding that we're receiving. So I do have a brief PowerPoint presentation. You have printouts in front of you. I've also already posted this on the town's website. If anyone in the public wants to take a look at it, it is posted there right now. Just by way of review, you already know this information. This is a breakdown of the funds that we've already received and the funds that we expect to receive in 2022. The total funding amount is $3,141,808.
Okay, on the county funds, who's going to determine how that's spent? Will it be like a joint effort between all the towns that are in the county?
No, actually, Rhode Island is a unique circumstance because we don't have county government. So the federal requirements actually allow us to spend those funds individually. So for the state of Rhode Island, they've taken the county funds and divided them up by population to the municipalities, and it's coming directly to us from the federal government.
So that's
So-
3141 is all.
Correct. So the difference between the two pots of money is for the county funds, will report directly to the federal government, and for the municipal funds, we'll also have to report to the state government because they're the ones distributing those funds. So just 3 points, important points about the program. The funds must be committed between March 3rd, 2021 and December 31st, 2024. So it's important that we have these funds committed by that December 31st date, 2024. The funds can't supplant funds that have already been budgeted, so we can't take things within our existing budget and pop this money in instead and save ourselves a few dollars. That's not allowed. And the schools will receive separate funds through the Rhode Island Department of Education. So there's several pots of federal money that the schools will be eligible for. The determination on exactly how much they receive and what they can use it for will be made by the federal government, also via RIDE. So they have considerable regulations that they'll have to consider as well, different from our pot of money. So there's really 3 steps to determining eligible projects. The first step is to identify impacts of COVID-19. So the purpose of these funds is to address COVID-19 related problems. So there needs to be a direct link to issues related to COVID-19. Now, one note, and I'll come back to it a little bit more detail in a minute, is that certain census tracts allow for some assumptions to be made about data about eligibility. And those census tracts are called qualified census tracts, and we do have one here in Warren. The next step is to identify potential projects that can address those impacts that we already identified. The projects must directly address the impact, and the projects must also be eligible under the U.S. Department of Treasury guidelines, which is it's a very long document with lots of requirements. And that is what one of the major things that HCH has been helping us with, is to interpret those guidelines and make sure that we're selecting projects that are eligible. And then the last step is going to be to prove that the project has had a positive effect. So we have to prove that the funds that we spent had an impact on the problem that we identified, and draw that direct line to COVID-19 impacts.
How would you measure that?
So that's part of the process, is we have to come up with metrics and ways to measure. We will be required to report, and in an extreme case, a failure to utilize funds correctly means we would have to repay. So the penalty is repayment. So it's going to be important for us to identify the metrics ahead of time and to know how we're going to measure our success before we make final selections on any projects. Because if we have projects that we can't adequately measure the success, we're going to run into issues of reporting at the end of this. So I just mentioned that qualified census tract. The area shaded in purple is our qualified census tract. It's Census Tract 305, which it encompasses a portion of our uptown area. And the definition of the qualified census tract, I took this right off the HUD website, is it's a tract in which 50% or more of the households are income eligible, and the population of all census tracts that satisfy this criterion does not exceed 20% of the total population of the respective area. So in case you were wondering, what it basically means is that this is an area where at least 50% of the residents are low and moderate income. So it does allow us to make certain assumptions about the impacts of COVID-19 on people who already may have been struggling financially. It also affects businesses within that district. So one of the primary focuses we've been working on since the last time we talked about this topic is the role of the public. Public input is required. It is not optional. This has been stressed to us multiple times that it is not a choice. We absolutely have to involve the public. They are the primary piece in the decision-making of how to spend this money. The first step is the public preference survey, which we just completed October 1st. The public preference survey closed. You have the full documentation of the results from that survey in your packets. We'll also make sure that that gets posted online. And the public was asked to rank their preferences, and they were also given space for free comments. So there's a lot of wide-ranging comment, and I thought some very well thought out and articulate comments that we received from the public. And I just wanted to make the point that multiple projects can be undertaken. We weren't asking people to choose one project to the exclusion of another. It was just ranking which they thought may have been more important than another. So that we certainly can undertake multiple projects. We don't have to pick one or two, depending on what the budgets are. So I'm just going to go through quickly what the projects are and what the priorities were that the public indicated through their preference survey. And I'll start with number 10, which was the lowest priority item. And that was addressing transportation issues for employers. So the problem that we were looking to address is that local employers have identified transportation as a significant problem with their workforces. Public transportation and carpooling opportunities have been negatively impacted by COVID, which has worsened the existing problem. So our goal is to improve transportation opportunities for workers, and the objective would be to perform a study to identify the needs of the employers and the employees in Warren. So the estimated budget, this is just an estimate, would be $5,000 to $10,000, taking about 6 months. Again, just a rough estimate based on the discussions we've had. The next item, number 9, was assistance with data analytics. And I think this might have ranked lower just because it was a little bit of a nebulous topic that people probably couldn't fully grasp because we were still trying to understand what we meant. So the problem is that we need to measure the impact of COVID-19 on the town, including on revenues, business impacts, and impacts on residents. There is a lot of data that's available currently, but it's very scattered and very difficult to kind of corral and understand. So the goal would be to analyze that data to provide useful information and communicate the information in an accessible way to the public and to the decision makers. So we would be seeking professional assistance to, still working? Yeah. Professional assistance to gather and analyze that data, break it down into an understandable format, and make sure that the public and decision makers have access to it. We would also, through the process, be establishing the performance metrics that we just talked about, which is the benchmarks by which we would be measuring our success as we implement projects. So the estimate for this one is between $5,000 and $25,000. It's a big range, but there's a lot of different options, and we could begin immediately on this. Number 8 is, again, kind of a nebulous project. Again, I think a reason why it might have scored pretty low is communicating the ARPA plans to the community. As we just talked about, we're required to solicit public input. So we're actually already doing some of this work. So this is an item that is already in progress, and we have not allocated any ARPA funds for it, but we've been able to obtain grant funds that have helped us up to this point. So the objective would be to utilize surveys, newspapers, and internet-based media to solicit input and provide ongoing updates. And one of the notes that was made through this was that we may need multilingual support. So we may need to be able to reach out to folks who maybe English isn't their first language, and we don't have the in-house ability to provide those translation services for our documentation. Number 7 was improving and preserving access to affordable housing. As you know, we do have the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which has been set up and has been on the books for a considerable amount of time. Just recently, we updated it a little bit. And we know that affordable housing is a significant issue, and that through COVID-19, it's only continued to become more of an issue as supply has been reduced and prices have gone up. So the intention of this item would be to provide some seed funding to that Affordable Housing Trust Fund, to set up the trust fund as a functioning entity, and to determine the eligibility criteria and implementation strategy so that we can start putting those dollars out in the street and preserving and creating new affordable housing units. So the budget's to be determined, but the target would be to fund 5 projects in 2 years, which would be very doable if we can get that trust fund up and running. Number 6 is assisting the Health Equity Zone. The Health Equity Zone is a new program that just came into being in July of this year. It was already in progress before the ARPA funds, before this ARPA became a reality. But COVID has definitely brought to light a lot of the health inequities and health disparities amongst people living in Warren. So the goal of this would be to expand community outreach through targeted efforts to identify and address social determinants of health within Warren, and then to help assist residents to connect with services and resources to help them live healthier lives. So one thing we've seen is that there's a lot of services out there, there's a lot of help out there, but oftentimes people don't know how to access that help. Either they have limitations through their own technology, maybe they don't have computer access, maybe they're not comfortable with computers, or maybe they just don't even know that that program exists and that they're eligible to benefit from it. So there is not an estimated budget on this so far, but we are working closely with EBCAP as the backbone agency for the HES. And that timeline would be ongoing depending on what aspects of the HES we would choose to support. Number 5 is improving broadband access. So the ARPA regulations specifically call out 3 types of infrastructure that can be funded through the ARPA. That's water, sewer, and broadband. So we have singled out broadband as a particularly acute need in Warren. Through COVID, it became very obvious that there was a need for improved connectivity for businesses, for students, and for people who also were working from home or seeking medical care from home. Telemedicine, I think, is here to stay. So what the request is to provide support for further analysis of broadband needs and connectivity options, and to prepare for the potential future availability of funds. So it is very likely there are going to be more broadband specific funds coming down the pipe, and we want to be ready to take advantage of anything that might become available to improve both the quality of broadband that we have available to residents, but also to improve the affordability, because it is very unaffordable for many people. Number 4 is to support the new fire rescue station plans. This council has been very strong in their support for this project through the allocation of capital funds for a new fire rescue station. I am very encouraged by our chances of obtaining additional funds, federal funds, specifically for the construction of the new fire rescue station. But the direct link to COVID is that through the pandemic, the fire and rescue department really took on a whole new set of responsibilities. Testing, vaccination, as well as the need for modern training facilities and an emergency command and operations center with adequate space for everyone who needs to participate in those. So what we're seeking to do with the ARPA funds is to complete the feasibility study, to complete engineering design and cost estimates, so that we're shovel ready when additional federal funds might become available, that we're very hopeful to receive. The cost estimate on this is $100,000 to $150,000, and the time frame would be 12 to 18 months. Number 3 is replacing lost town revenues. This scored quite a bit higher on the scale than I thought it would, but it was ranked very highly by the public. We did definitely have losses attributable to COVID in our revenues. What the ARPA regulations allow is that you can either do the detailed line item and see exactly what you lost, or you can assume a 4.1% growth rate, which for us, assuming the 4.1% growth rate would be advantageous and a lot easier, because then there's no question whether you're doing it correctly or not. It's 4.1%. So the next step would be to determine the eligible amount, and then for the council to decide just how much you want to use of those ARPA funds to replenish the town coffers. As of right now, the estimated budget looks like we could potentially claim around $800,000 per year in lost revenues.
Okay, I have a question on that.
Yep.
How would that tie into state limit on the budget increase? That hurt us in the future or help us?
I don't believe this would count towards the levy, because it's not tax revenue, so it wouldn't count towards the levy. Just wanted to double check with Ms. Chan. So again, we'll do the exact calculation and come back to the council. with exactly how much we could be eligible for, and then you could decide to take all that amount or some lesser amount that you see fit. And then that could be done immediately upon receipt of those funds. You know, we've received half the funds already, we'll receive the next half of the funds next year. And as soon as we receive them, we could restrict them for that replacement. Number 2 was a storefront improvement program. This is something that several communities are considering, and it scored very highly with the public. You might remember that several years ago, we did have a community development block grant storefront improvement program. That was a little bit different because there was a significant amount of documentation that was required of the business owner. It was a matching grant, so they had to put up a good chunk of their own capital in order to access the funds. And the maximum amount they were eligible for was quite low. So we're seeking to do our own program with a higher allocation per property to provide funds to improve the external appearance of businesses within that qualified census tract. That way, we can assume that if the business is within the qualified census tract, that they are impacted, and we don't have to do quite as much documentation as far as the actual property owners.
Kate, I have a quick question. So on the qualification for a business that has experienced a hardship, is there a guideline or is it open for interpretation?
It's quite open for interpretation, which is problematic.
But maybe it could work to our advantage. You know, there's several gateways that we have coming in and out of the community, all get their appropriate amount of attention. I think no rhyme or reason, or it's maybe our fault, or maybe it's not our fault. Maybe that 103 corridor coming in when it comes off of 114 could be identified. I think the planner is shaking his head, either yeah. It is.
Right, no. No. Yeah, so it's a pretty limited area. And if you went outside that qualified census tract, you'd have to actually pull the financials of that property, that business owner, and they would have to prove that they have negative impacts due to COVID, which is it's a more difficult.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of a Herculean task, but not
impossible.
Not impossible.
No. Okay. So it's something we could keep in mind. It's just what we're recommending is to go with the qualified census tract for ease of implementation. One of the other issues is that no one is going to approve or deny our use of these funds. So you don't find out if you did it wrong, basically, until they come back after an audit and tell you did it wrong. So it's not like anyone's going to bless your plan and say, yes, please go forward and spend these funds. We are basically on our own to come up with a plan that's compliant.
And I'll get with you.
The historical review may be necessary. Is that because of the federal program, or is that because of our local zoning?
That is because of our local zoning ordinance. So anything within the historic district, depending on what those upgrades are that's proposed for the exterior, it may require the review of the voluntary historic district committee. And I'm sure that we could work with that committee and with the planner to streamline those applications as much as possible, maybe hold hearings on a special night so everyone can come at once, that type of thing, to move it as quickly as possible, but still get that important input on historic value. And then the highest priority item, according to the public input, was improving food security for children. And I think personally, this was probably the most upsetting and the most unexpected impact of COVID was how quickly food insecurity rose to the top as a problem. Virtually as soon as schools closed, it was an issue. And as you'll see in the first sentence of this, the number of families in Rhode Island experiencing food insecurity has increased from 1 in 8 to 1 in 4, which is a kind of a staggering statistic. So school children who depended on school lunch programs were particularly impacted. Hope in Maine had worked with the Bristol Warren Regional School District and Chartwells to distribute meals, and they also launched the Nourish Our Neighbors program. So the goal of what we would like to do is to expand the ability to provide healthy, locally prepared meals to those in need, and to increase community awareness and connect the emergency supplemental food system to the local food economy. So this really has two benefits. Obviously, you're benefiting the person in need who needs that healthy meal, but you're also benefiting the businesses that can help to produce those meals locally. So we would partner with Hope and Main to implement whatever program we see fit to improve food security. The budget is still to be determined. One of the things we have identified is that Hope and Main is in need of additional freezer capacity, and they could do a lot more with distributing meals if they had the ability to freeze more meals and store them on site. So that's something that might be a nice fit for our spending abilities.
Would it cover staffing for them as well?
It-
Costs?
It could. We would just have to be very clear that these funds have a beginning and an end. This is not an ongoing source of funding. This is a finite source of funding. So next steps. I have a few recommendations for next steps. The first one is kind of off script and came about through some of our recent experiences. I'd like to ask the council to carve out some funds, basically immediately, to upgrade the audiovisual system in this chambers. We've had some negative feedback on the quality of the audio and the visual of these meetings from the viewing public at home. And it hasn't been great. And we've been trying to kind of pull together pieces from here and there to make it work, and it's not working. So we have $9,080.60 left in a capital account for the audiovisual system. What I'd like to do is to ask the council to allocate an additional $19,710.94 from the ARPA funds to fund the Shanix proposal of $28,791 to fix this system the way it needs to be fixed. You'll see in your packet, there's an estimate from Shanix. Ignore the bottom number because that included tax. President, Council,
Would that be under manager?
No,
it's under old business.
yeah, it'll be one. Kate, if I may, so they're giving us this breakdown. What did we recently just spent?
We did not spend as much as we thought we were going to spend because we have that $9,000 left in that account. I believe we spent maybe between 5 and 6, and we can reuse what we purchased. So we're not throwing away equipment that we
No,
just bought.
And this is not a criticism. I'm thinking we probably should have did what they're saying when we were doing. And
Absolutely.
it's okay to say that.
It
Kate.
is-
It's not gonna hurt my feelings, okay?
That is true.
Okay, because that's what my takeaway is on this. I'm like, all right, I'm scratching my head, because we were here a year or so ago, we were doing this, and now we're ending back here. Are they saying that this is going to fix it completely?
They are.
Now, what about the feed coming in? Because we're still working off of what's being fed into the building.
We have done the switch over to fiber.
Okay. So that was probably part of the problem too.
That was part of the problem too, yes. So between the fiber installation and this work, we would be where we need to be to have a quality experience for people viewing at home. And Shanix is doing this. A number of other towns have done the same thing that we've done. They've kind of trial and error tried to make it work, and now they're realizing they need a comprehensive approach. This estimate is considerably lower than a lot of other communities are paying because we do have a lot of equipment that can be repurposed.
Well, we're small. It's a short run. It's just for.
Yes.
Had we gone for the whole upgrade earlier on, would we have been able to cover the cost with these APRA funds?
No. So that's a blessing in disguise.
There
Is
we go.
I see the installation of a camera controller, the 2 new cameras. Who's gonna, in other words, if someone's speaking at the podium, who's gonna push the button?
You guys,
Oh, you're gonna be the producers now too, huh?
And the clerks have been involved in coming up with this estimate and this plan.
Okay.
So we're not imposing something on them. They've been part of the process.
is this going to be something hard mounted in the area where the clerks are right now? Or is it going to be a mobile tablet? So it's a TBD thing to determine whether or not it's going to be stationary or.
Correct, that piece we can,
And my guess is that it's probably going to be able to go to other devices.
it is going to be a much more flexible system.
And it'd still be secured.
Yes.
So, and in the end, guaranteed to work.
That's what we've been
Contract, the
told.
contract say that. So, I mean,
Well, we'll make sure to add that to the contract.
well, again, we've been through a real debacle here. with-
Yes.
A lot of this stuff, wow. Yeah, halfway.
Is this going to link into the other systems that we have up and running? Or is it going to be separate?
No, it'll utilize the same platforms.
Okay.
It's going to go through the existing Zoom account, the existing YouTube account, all that's going to stay the same.
Is this on the agenda further down so we can approve the funds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually, it's under OB1, the request approval for purchase of audiovisual equipment for the town council chambers.
That number is different than you, you motion, requested motion for 21,000.
Yes, and that was my mistake. That included tax, and we are tax exempt.
So the number is,
The number is $19,710.94 in ARPA funds. And then for the existing capital account, we have $9,080.60.
That's 28, but the use of 21,000. So we would need to approve a new 21
no, 19,710, 94.
numbers you just gave, me added up to 28,000.
Right, it's $28,791.
That's the total.
That's
the
the
total.
total. But
That's the
tonight,
total.
we're looking for the approval of the use of 21,111.01.
It's actually $19,710.94.
94.
And that was my mistake because I didn't notice
Oh,
that they'd
okay.
include
That
tax.
include tax. So we took the tax out. It's-
So while I was pointing to Mr. Hanley here, you were covering that. Thank you. Got
And
it.
that would be approved from the APRA funds,
Ye-
correct?
Yes, you've already approved the $9,080.60 through the regular budget.
Would that be appropriate now or to wait till that comes up?
You can do it now, but I do have one suggestion on this. In reviewing the scope of the work, there's a reference to the Shannick's Terms and Conditions Agreement, which is not attached. That goes to Councilman Heckert's earlier comment about guarantees. If you are to approve this number, could you make a contingent on a review of the terms and conditions to see if there are any escape clauses for Shannick's if things don't work out the way they're supposed to? I'd like to take a look.
I will make a motion that we approve $19,710 from the APRA funds
94 cents.
and 94 cents from the APRA funds to fund the audiovisual system in Town Hall pending the review of the town solicitor of the terms of the contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that is done. Then the other motion required this evening after further discussion will be, is now the appropriate time to reprioritize? If there is a feeling to do so, the list here of suggested expenses or expenditures or targets.
That would be the request, because at this point, we want to start really digging into these projects. We can come back to you with some solid details, and we want to make sure that we're headed in the right direction. So if there is an amendment that you'd like to make to this priority list or additions, subtractions, then it would be very helpful to hear that.
So which of these, because looking at a few of them, are going to be sort of also covered by state level funding? You know, when I look at number 10, the address transportation issues for employers, is that something that RIDOT is going to be investing in? I don't want to, ignore our manufacturing sector at all and those businesses that have issues with getting their employees in and out of town. But is that something that RIDOT should be held accountable for?
So the state has not released their spending plans yet, so we don't know exactly how they're going to be spending their funds. They do have, I believe, $1.1 billion to spend. So what we've tried to do with these projects is to fund things that'll position us in a way that will make us eligible for further funds for some of these big ticket items. Obviously, with our limited amount of money, we're not going to be able to solve the transportation issues. That's why what we're looking to do is to fund a study so that we can have some concrete recommendations for those agencies that may have the ability to actually implement change like a RIPTA. So there are definitely other pots of money coming down the road. Definitely for broadband. So again, for the broadband item, we're recommending to position ourselves for other funds rather than to do all the lifting ourselves, because there will definitely be funds available through different federal and state agencies for broadband, but we need to know what we're asking for.
Right, that was going to be the next one that I asked about, was broadband. I mean, we don't want to spend all of our money if there's going to be more coming in that direction. So our list this evening, our priorities is we're not going to be held to any numbers or anything. This is just the order of priority.
Correct. And then the next step after the setting the priority list would be for us to go back, the staff and HCH, and to develop some further details on budget with the stakeholders, and then come back with a concrete spending plan to request final approval on that.
So by moving, say, for instance, something down the list of priorities, it would not necessarily mean that we would get any less than the sort of ballpark figure you've attached here. We could still get that much, possibly more for it.
Correct. So it's possible we could do all 10 things on the list. It's just that things with a lower priority will probably receive less funding than the things with a higher priority.
All right. Does anybody have opinions on moving around this list of priorities?
I don't really,
I don't,
I don't disagree with them. It actually looks like we're probably going to be able to do them all, or at least a good chunk of them.
Okay.
So I don't think we need to, I mean, they're kind of aligned with the way I was looking at it. So.
Keep in mind that this represents the priorities based on 80 respondents.
Correct.
So, that's an okay little slice, but there are more of us who might have different priorities.
and the budget numbers are really to be determined, because many of these items have no budget number associated, and many have a wide range of budget. So it's morphing.
Right.
And so until we see some of those numbers, I think we can start to look at a little bit more clearly where the priorities are. Right now, it's really hard to say until consultants and you guys take a hard look. Seems to me.
I would then also ask if the gentlemen here have any strong opinions on the list, if they think that this is sort of shook out as it should.
Yeah, I was
This
wondering.
is out of character for other communities, or
You can have to go forward.
would you mind coming forward, sir?
Yeah, we know you can bring your support team if they want to move up forward.
Come to the podium and speak into the microphone, please.
I would just say that we are really hoping that the council way to help us make big funds. That is one of the what priorities are.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you for preparing.
I'll just because I don't want them to get away without being introduced. Kristen Reed is also in the audience. She's representing the brand new health equity zone. And then we have Lisa and Waterman from Hope and Maine are also here. So we do have a few of our stakeholders in the audience.
Hello and welcome all.
Okay, I will make a motion that we adopt the presented priority list, that we direct the project team to continue developing proposed scope and budgeting figures, and that they return to the town council with a fully developed proposal for review and approval.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Discussion.
Discussion, Mr. Heckert?
Mr. Earl, you had asked if the council would weigh in on our top priorities. Is that what I heard? How would you like us to give you that information from us directly, or is it? That's what I heard. So I want to make sure that we, as a council, look back into these and again, identify the top 3 or 4, or even 5, but that would, I think, help you do what you need to do. So,
And if the council wants to send information through me, then that's probably the easiest way. And then I can make sure that everybody on the team receives it.
thank you.
That would be great. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Well done, Kate.
New business, NB1, update from the Warren Harbor Management Commission regarding rights of way assessment. I believe we have Mr. Woody Kemp here this evening, Chair of the Warren Harbor Commission. We have some just arrived information here for us all to see. Good evening.
Been involved in the right of way project for many. Basically, overview of our time. Start with again, these right of ways were submitted, certified by Census, adopted by the. Photos. I just gave you the stamps of the right of way. this photo right here. Access. Get to the mark, and then you try to actually access. What I would have for both places is that obviously the lack of maintenance, some of them have them. Parking for purchase, had for purchase. Well, grand market. We have these stored somewhere. Only grand market has already been described. Products are all these.
We just having that conversation. It's got to be over 10 years.
All right, so 10 years ago, we put three. And the next thing that I want to show you. You also have additional.
Can we just take a pause for a moment?
It's a Friday.
Well,
Oh.
actually, while we're taking a pause, can you go to your page 57, the bottom left picture? You have it marked as Birds Hill Park, but I would bet my life that's Beach Street, 'cause that's where I took all my boat.
Well, by the CRMC.
Yep.
So it may not be.
Okay, I'm looking, I'm saying, that's not Birds Hill Park. Either that or I've been putting my boat in the wrong
It's
place
more
for
just to
years.
show you that we have. I think and we also presented a list of other ways that we've done exhaustive research. We had a major project. Now what we have, we also have Bridge Street. Project about Bridge Street. We have to have the existing certified right of way maintained. The whole process, maintenance of these, pretty much falls on the highway department maintenance. But it's a balance of these right of ways marked because we have granite towns in storage. Town yard or the place with it. And the CRMC submittals. We also
Thank you, Mr. Kemp. I would say that this was a informative presentation. We can take no action, discussion or action this evening. It's not on the agenda that way, so we cannot make any directions or decisions and discussions and movement. So if there is,
okay, so understood. So what should I do? Follow up on this? Should I follow up? Guys, action.
very specific.
Well, the secretary would come at budget time, unfortunately. put into the budget, which is May and June, that area. As far as the, getting the granite markers in place. So are you saying we already have them? You just need the manpower to put them in?
Yeah, it was, part of, we had multiple projects, so. Pulled that whole project together. Hard to install that, but why issues arose, in fact, like,
Was that work previously done by the DPW?
three markers that are in all stuff, but it's all cemented.
Okay, on that, we can't really take action, but the town manager has just heard everything that transpired. So now she has an idea what's going on, and we have Mr. Malik over there as well. So, Yep. that's perfect. Yep,
So a lot of this would fall on DPW, obviously, the maintenance and the installation of these markers.
Well, the maintenance of the right of ways.
Right. So it's good.
Projects
If-
that the rule is- I know they're-
The staff is heard. But it would
And
be,
then the only other one, which I don't think I have, trying to just get these things certified.
If I can, this is a big issue in the state.
Mhm.
Because, the Rhode Island Constitution guarantees public access to the shore. It's one of the few state constitutions that does so. And just by way of example, in Rhode Island, property ends for private property owners at the mean high tide. In nearby Massachusetts, the property line is to mean low. That's a big difference. This has become a very big issue in the state, these rights of way. So CRMC has quite a few in there. I can tell you, in the last 4 years, 50% of the designated right of ways have been in the town of Warren that CRMC has recognized. Some of them you mentioned, Bridge Street, Beach Street, the one over by the broken bridge. I forget the name of that one. I think that's Riverview Drive in Baker. There were 17 rights of way that were submitted from Warren. And, other towns have said, how come Warren's getting all this attention? And CRMC has approved others in other parts of the state. We're going to get around to them, but it's not, CRMC's understaffed. And we'll get to them as soon as we can. I'm very familiar with all 17. So, and if you want at a separate time, because that's not part of your agenda tonight, I can give you an analysis on it. I've reviewed what the law fellows did in conjunction with the Warren Harbor Commission. So we can go through all of 17. So that's where it's. Okay. Okay, you guys. Okay, did you submit them down at the Stedman Center? Okay. You can submit.
I remember when you came in front of us at that time. Yeah, with that, yes.
I'll run it down. I'll run it down. Okay.
I'll say, thank you for your continued work on this, because I think public access and, right of ways is critical. So, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Righty, town manager, discussion and action regarding website redesign and extension of web services sales agreement with Revise.
So our existing website is hosted by Revise. They designed this existing site several years ago. And it is about time for us to update that design and modernize the site. As existing customers, there's a significant amount of this work that would be done at no additional charge, since we do utilize Revise as our hosts. We've actually already paid the current year hosting fee to Revise. So what I am requesting is that we agree to extend our existing sales agreement with the company, which is a condition of them going forward with this website redesign. I'm also recommending a couple of additional items, which we do have existing funds for, to hire Revise to do not just the content migration from the old site to the new site, but also to do style and spell checking and bad link checking, the kind of thing that I try to keep up with, but I can't always do. So this would be a once through the entire site, get rid of dead links, get rid of outdated information that's no longer necessary, just do a general cleanup of our content. And then one other thing that we'd like to add is the curated smart search, which I can forward you samples from other communities that are doing this. Basically, your home landing page contains just a big old search box, and people can type in any question they want, and it's going to take you directly to where you need to go. So it circumvents the need to understand kind of those site maps and those drop-down menus, where some of that might not be intuitive for someone who's not as familiar with municipal government. So it's a much more user-friendly way to search a website. So that would be the request. I'm not asking for additional funds because we already have funds in the budget to cover this. What I am asking for, though, is the endorsement of the redesign and the extension of the sales contract, as it's identified in this document.
So the first, on the second page, the 9/15/2021. That's just an additional $28.50 for the new work because we already paid the first.
Correct.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we authorize the extension of the agreement with Revise.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So I will be looking for input. We're going to try to figure out a way to gather public input, but it'll be important to get the town council's input. I would ask if you see municipal websites or any type of government websites that you like or that are doing this well, if you could send those my way, or just features that you may like, or an appearance that you may like, or a format that you may like, because that's the first thing Revise is going to do, is they're going to ask us what direction we want to head in. And then they're going to give us several choices, several options to choose from. So it would be very helpful to be able to get some thoughts on preferences, and I will try to come up with a way to get maybe another survey out so people can forward their thoughts. It's the kind of thing that I think I look at too much, and sometimes I don't see it anymore because I've looked at it too much. So it'd be really good to get some additional perspectives.
I know I don't want to jump ahead too far because this is more of a budget issue, but I know there's always been a struggle about maintenance of the site, and there hasn't been a point person because no one gets paid to do it. So it's you, and I know Council President has put considerable time in, and we appreciate that. But I think we really need to think about paying somebody to keep the thing running well, because it's I think it's too much for you, and I think it's too much for us to do. So
I completely agree.
so I know I'm jumping far ahead, but it's something we've discussed in multiple budget sessions. So I'm just throwing it out there.
Refer to the traffic commission.
Yeah, the catch-all. It's the catch-all for sure. So
Well, this does say annual hosting, support, and maintenance, so we will hold them to that. And I think the idea of bringing public feedback and comment ideas into it is really important, because, yeah, I have the app on my phone and I look at it all the time, and
At the time,
it's a blur now.
At the time, it was a huge upgrade from what we had before. So I think we were just so happy to get out of the old site that was so clunky and hard to work with. But now you know, technology's come a long way and we can do better.
And people expect more. That's the thing is that, you know, people go to the website with expectations that it will work and they can, you know, navigate it. So.
And 2, a discussion and action regarding information technology infrastructure support services, Packet Logics, master client agreement for monthly support, data backup services, dark web scanning. So Manager Michaud again.
Can I interrupt? Did you vote on the previous item? Could you, did we vote?
Here's a vote.
Did they take a vote? Okay,
We
sorry.
did,
I'm
right?
sorry.
Yeah,
I
we voted
apologize.
Yeah, I made the
Yes,
motion.
yes, we
Okay.
did second.
I heard the motion in second.
Yeah.
So I provided a memo outlining the process that we've taken to this point. As you probably know, Packet Logics is our existing information technology provider, services provider. We are on a month-to-month basis. Several months ago, we went out with an RFP for these services because we thought it would made more sense to enter into a contractual agreement so that we would have some guaranteed stability in the provision of these important services. And obviously, internet technology and particularly security are paramount issues that we absolutely can't mess around with. So we did receive 2 bids. One was from Packet Logics, which is detailed here. The other was for Konica Minolta, and you'll see the price and you'll see why we didn't consider that one to bring forward to you for approval. But you know, Packet Logics knows our system very well. They've been very good to us in helping us to modernize our existing operations. As you know, we've migrated exclusively to Office 365, which has greatly improved our reliability. Several years ago, we were having problems with the email going out frequently, and we had a lot of system problems, and those have been eliminated through the migration to the Office 365. Terrence is here tonight from Packet Logics. He is here to answer any questions about services. One thing that I would note is that there's 3 agreements that Packet Logics has recommended. The first is the master client agreement. The second is the protection, which is the data backup. And the third is the dark web scanning. So perhaps Terrence could explain those quickly to you. But I would note that any of these agreements require review by our legal counsel. Legal counsel has provided some initial comments, but I would ask that any approvals are conditional upon their final review and approval of all 3 of those documents.
I would agree. This is a heavy-duty document. Solicitors, notes and people appreciated.
Question.
We've made several suggestions. I'm waiting to hear back from Packet Logic on them. As to some points in this agreement that I think are not in the town's favor at all.
Okay.
That's what we're waiting on.
Very well. Mr. Boylan, if you would like to come forward. Welcome, Terrence Boylan, owner of Packet Logics. If you, just give us a brief rundown of the services that you're providing.
backing them up. I will definitely. Some of them, and that provides a lot of a number of cybersecurity challenges because have received a pretty serious threat now. So it's all so it's gonna be on, I guess. We supplied a secure remote desktop utility that allowed us to secure those connections. Let's see. We do provide this what we call a site and network optimization, where I mean the town has more than 2 sites, right? So a site would be obviously town hall would be one. We don't currently support the police department or the fire department. I mean, occasionally we go there if it's easy to do, we know how to do it. Of course, we're going to service them. And then we consider DPW. There's a couple of other sites, but to be honest, they're so small and they call so regularly, I don't really see a purpose of including them in a charge. And those are really the types of the town does purchase their and an annual agreement is going Microsoft agreement for everybody. The last thing that really like one we're just kind of in the pricing because I really is dark web monitoring, dark web search monitoring. So dark web you guys have to understand internet a little very right? That's the internet as you know. Then there's the deep internet. The deep internet would be places where you have to authenticate to get to certain places. Website doesn't like that. You can't get in face or whatever. That's the largest part of the internet. And then the third component is the dark web. The dark web is completely unregulated. It is actually not subject to any of the searching or indexing by any of the large search engines. In fact, they really have to do that. And browser and operating system, that's where those cyber privacy threat large economy. So we can go target this small or large that there's very much and my opinion is certainly now be honest, not really saying thousands of cells right now. Yeah. So I really don't want any part of it here. So what's the service? This service index goes through and looks at the dark web and those of any kind. You could also right? And it's going to identify all those people, all those and then send them back for different teams. Horrifying information about all the things that so what we do is and isolate what are the threats that we know about, how do we mitigate those threats,
Thank you. Hi. Way back when, pre-pandemic, my town email was getting regularly spoofed. I guess that's what it is. I don't think that's happened. I haven't gotten anybody.
You haven't asked me for gift cards.
I haven't
No.
asked, yeah, I was asking a lot of people for gift cards and yeah, it went out to a lot of people, but so is that something that you have effectively cured or stopped or mitigated in some way?
So far as to say, we cure it insofar as to. We fixed it for now. Possibility exists that your account may get compromised again, and that somebody take your account again. Higher possibility. Ordinarily difficult, right? Right. Most of my problems are with monitoring services or actually with account. And I'm building a study now.
I don't know if this is valid, but isn't a lot of this security issues about an employee clicking on, and how do you prevent that? So no, they opening up like, yeah, now you just, the floodgates are open because they clicked on the wrong site.
But you can block the certain site, you can block a litany of sites.
Yeah, it's a really great question. The problem with blocking the site is that there's another idea like that day, you probably have a lot of data scripts that are ready. But there's really three ways of preventing self-inflicted harm, lack of prevention, right? First way is we have malware services that are running in the cloud. So we didn't have that downstairs. But now it's hosted by Microsoft. Microsoft is a lot of that in the process. Tax credit, Microsoft, get it firewall. A lot of those attacks are going to be knocked down by the firewall downstairs. Somebody can do that. Once they can do that, when they open up their email and they click on it, they are software we have in every house program computer that should recognize that, pop it up and block it, and make you a warning. Site maybe
So training employees to recognize that pop up and say, don't ignore it, right?
Really great question. Really great statement. That's one of the things that you know, every week we have a cybersecurity email that goes out every week. Most people who are my clients may read it. Some are very, very simple. Some are more complex, but it's that's cybersecurity awareness and on the line. So we get those. So we get I will say this: some of the attacks that are coming out now are very programmed. Very programmed.
Well, the site looks completely legitimate.
So that's one thing that the garbage scanning. The other thing that we want to put in place is backing up your bookings, right? Data. So right now we back up all of the accounts data that's on the server. Anything they feel for accessing and we're backing up. Anywhere else it doesn't get back up. Everything that's of value on the server downstairs, open it downstairs, back those up on like an hourly basis. However, your email, and if people are putting things in OneDrive or even none of that is backed up. But Microsoft backs up their stuff now. Microsoft backs up their ability to store things back their application and secretly not back So it has happened. It's not often, I will say that, but it has happened. For people to take that, you know, so,
And I wouldn't imagine these are huge files that we have to worry about space. These are just data files. Okay. Not like photographs and.
Yeah, I did federal grant years ago and say, you back up everything within this small amount. And, you know, now you say,
Very good. Thank you for all the information.
I
So,
will make a motion that we authorize the town manager to enter into the agreement with Packet Logics pending the documentation by the town solicitor.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Solicitor, discussion and action regarding potential national opioid settlement with Janssen Pharmaceuticals, Inc. and its parent company, Johnson and Johnson.
That's $5 million, so not for that. I don't want to be a part of saying that people said not being not you have a choice tonight. That is no, not in. So,
Is there any downside to opting in?
Matter of fact,
They have a trial date for January. I asked. Yeah, any questions on this?
We opted out, our only option would be to start our own case, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. I'll make a motion that we authorize the town manager to sign the agreement that we want to opt into this case.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Finance Director, Revenue and Expenditures. Hello, Ms. Tran. I know we all received the digital document.
I found, yeah.
We're getting all new.
Hello,
Hello.
good evening.
Evening.
Okay, you have the September report in front of you, and do you have any questions? I don't have any more surprises for you.
No,
You don't see any concerns with everything seems to be lining up the way it should be so far through the fiscal year?
And last month we mentioned it has also the potential. Flaws. So other than that, I don't see anything else as of now.
I had asked from, for some clarification on third-party billing. That's
Okay.
So, and she answered my question and to my satisfaction. Thank you for the response. So,
So you are getting up to date with all of the reporting and whatnot, and you've got enough support now to make that happen.
Yes,
Okay. Very
Sean
well.
is helping, so that's good.
Any other questions?
Just one real quick one. With the new CFO, with the Bristol Warren Regional School District, has he given you the updated projections yet? He said possibly his time frame could be about this week, but more towards the end of the month. I was just wondering if he's reached out to you yet. Not yet? No? Okay, that's fine. It could be projected more towards the end of the month, Kate.
We did meet with the CFO and he gave us a lot of detailed information about existing budget information. He hasn't given us any projections yet,
Okay.
but it was, I will say it was an impressive amount of information that he's assembled in a very short period of
Tony
time.
seems to be a pretty, right on point individual. I think it's going to be a welcome addition having him there. Thanks. Yeah, it looks nice. Yeah. I had to do a double check. I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't look like fun. I was like, oh yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, it's good.
No,
Thank you very much.
Tax assessor. So Mr. Leadham is not with us this evening. Ms. Michaud, did you just want to go over the abatements and additions?
Sure, you have the information in your packet, a couple of small abatements. The details are provided for you. There's a good amount of additions. It's all new construction based on the ordinance that allows us to assess properties once they receive the certificate of occupancy. So you have all the details on that.
I would like to make a motion to abate the 2021 tax roll in the amount of $156.82. And we add to the 2021 tax roll the amount of $21,493.31.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. To the rec director. So starting off with approval and authorization for the town council president to sign a design contract with added space for new concession, storage, office, and bathroom facility at Burrsville Park. So this is a contract that would look at the area, identify the best space, and then do a design plan for this. Okay, and exactly where is this located? Will this be located? All right. And concession is, how is that going to be? That will be part of the building? So, so there will be like a food prepared or just like, okay. So does that mean there'll be like a? Oh,
Probably be, I think, didn't we used to go out to bid when we had the other one before? We did it awarded to concession rights or something, so the person could go in there and do that facility. Is that how we did it last time? Oh, okay. Right. No, but I mean, but once the concession stands up, like the person's gonna be in there cooking the hamburgers, do we, that be? Okay. But I think in the past, remember when we had that old one over where? Yeah, but that's how they used to do it. They used to have somebody go in there and put a bit, yeah. So, yeah, see, you at that, yeah. Oh, okay. I will make a motion, we approve town council president to sign a design contract with Addis Bates for the new concession storage office and bathroom facility at Burnsville Park.
before we
Hey,
take a
just have-
second?
Just have one quick comment on it. There's in the agreement, it says Add Space is not responsible or liable for zoning and permit violations unless Add Space was engaged in permit coordination and application. I just get concerned about that because this isn't I think this contract was designed for a company as opposed to a municipality. It seems standard to me. I'm concerned about that because, we're going to be issuing the building permit on this. And it seems to me that if they're doing the design, they have to necessarily be involved in how that permit gets issued for this.
Would
So-
they be putting the buildings up?
So this is the same company that did the bathrooms, that's how it worked. During that process, the building official and I made visits, make sure that they were in compliance.
But they needed to pull permits though, didn't they? Did they pull permits?
They didn't pull permits, but I mean, just to make sure that it was up to code.
You gotta pull permits.
Because they're installing off-site, they're actually doing the fabrication.
All right, yeah, so yeah, as long as they've got the state certification where they build them, in other words, they'll come through with the state building commission will approve the design and they monitor the construction, so that's fine, that can come through, but you still need a building permit to put it in place. The town may be exempt from zoning, but it's not exempt from the state building permit. You
That's
need the
correct,
permit.
yes.
So there has to be a permit. Now, if they're gonna be the contractor, they can fill out the permit. They have to be a registered Rhode Island contractor to put these things in place.
Well, it says unless otherwise noted, owner is responsible to obtain and pay for building permits and other permits in governmental fees, licenses, and inspections. Now, I'm just concerned about that because the town is,
Right.
going to be the issuing.
The town can apply for the permit as long as we have his contractor information and registration number on the permit. He doesn't have to be the applicant. We can be the applicant, but we need the contractor of record. That's per state law, that anyone that's performing any work over $1,000 needs to be a registered private contractor. So we can pull the permit. Anybody that could pull the permit is the town, but we would need his information included on that permit application, qualifying him as the contractor.
What about the cost of the permit?
We can, that could be waived. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about that. My concern is that if the information that's received from outer space is incorrect, then they have no liability under this provision. That's my concern.
I'll add to that motion pending approval of the solicitor on the wording of the contract.
And just another thing, so does this come back to us once the design is developed and we see it? There's another pass at it for us to see.
And this is $15,000 coming out of a rec grant. Okay.
And I'll second that motion if there's no further discussion.
Ms. Barone, do you have that motion? Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yep. Next, we have discussion and action regarding authorization to proceed with drainage studies for recreational facilities, BL Companies, NE Inc., master price agreement. So we have the Veterans Field and multi-use fields. So remind us about these two projects and what we will get once these drainage studies are.
Veterans Field project was been
Okay, and these studies will happen prior to the end of the season.
so they are having
I'll take a motion. Drainage studies with BL Companies, NE, pending review of the contract by the town solicitor.
Yes, again, thank you for that, because and it's just two things. This is a standard contract, and it's actually for not a large amount of money, contracts of this nature. And this is a Connecticut company. And the only two things that I flagged were that there's a limitation on liability for $250,000. I'm not that concerned about it because of the amount of the contract, and basically what they're doing is studies on drainage. But this is the agreements governed and construed according to the laws of Connecticut. And if anything goes wrong, you're gonna have to file suit down in Connecticut. That means you're gonna lose. So what I'm hoping is that this can be switched to Rhode Island, because that's where the work is being.
So we have a motion.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And now we have discussion and action regarding roof repairs at Pete Seppi Pavilion. Budget is $10,000, and we've got options here.
Well, thank you. I
I'm-
like options.
Yeah, so there's the option that costs $9,670, which is to install 40 square foot 30-year architectural roof shingles in black over the existing roof. Or there's the other option that costs $14,960, which exceeds our budget.
$5,000.
That's a good price, though. That 14,960 number, you're saying he came back with 40 square? 40 square seems to be what the number is to do the overlay. And then 14,960 will do a strip.
Is
Yeah,
there
so
any
he's-
danger to life and limb
No.
if we go with the 9,670?
No, that's permitted by the,
actually a local vendor.
Okay.
No, the building code allows for up to 2 layers of shingles. So, yeah,
Yeah.
there would be 1 layer on top.
It just wears on the life of the shingle.
Yeah, they're putting a 30-year shingle. I don't think that you're gonna still get at least 25 years. The only downside I see is the next time it needs a roof, it's gonna be a lot more expensive
Yeah.
to replace because
I
there's
mean,
gonna be 2 layers being stripped off.
So the price we got right now for the $9,600 is like $241 a square. And for the 14, just under 15,000. Those are both really aggressive and ambitious, which I would jump on those in a second because they're very price attractive. For me, I would definitely support stripping it and putting on a new roof. We have the available funds? Or are we,
So the only available funds we have for this project is the 10,000.
we only have 10,000, that's it.
That's
We don't
all
have
we-
an option.
That's all we got currently. If
Yeah. Can we
If-
use any HOPA funds or?
we cannot use any ARPA funds for this, no.
We can have outdoor meetings under there.
Yeah,
Well, we'll have to talk to our consultants about that.
I'm just not a fan of kicking the can down the road. But if we're restricted by budget restraints, then it is what it is.
In 25 years,
Well, it's probably gonna be a little lower, little shorter life on the
The last one lasted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
brand new roof. Well, it's a brand new roof. No, but so what happens is the lower roof is gonna heat and deteriorate the other roof, and that roof only has sun exposure. There's no shade trees. But yeah, we don't have the
I mean,
front
it's
cut.
kind of like,
You don't wanna write
I
the
think we
check?
should make a motion.
I will make a motion that we authorize the overlay of roof shingles at the Peep Septic Pavilion in the amount of $9,670.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I am gonna vote
Opposed?
nay.
Okay, we got,
Thank you.
good, thank you.
$5,000 check.
It's,
Say yes, I'll change my vote.
yeah, Stuart has already voted.
All righty, we have, the next is approval and authorization for the town council president to sign a design contract with Addispace, not going around, for new additional bathrooms at Pete Seppi Pavilion. And there is an account number there, and so Addispace is getting a lot of good work from the town of Warren. Are they
Addispace.
offering us any sort of, package deals?
Frequent flyer.
They are, but the advantage of particularly at Brooks Park is that their ability to have that project completed by the spring. Yeah. Those ones. Yeah. Guarantee that.
I will make a motion that we help the president sign the contract with Addispace for the new bathrooms at the Pete Seppi Pavilion pending approval of the town solicitor on the wording in the contract.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Tara. Good luck with your meeting tomorrow.
Planning and community development, we've got a few items here. So number one is approval and authorization for the town council president to sign an agreement for consulting services with Municap Inc. for advisory services for the proposed tax increment financing, that's TIF district. Planner Rulli, we need to do this to move forward if that is our intention to create that
We've
district.
had a lot of conversations about tax increment financing, what it is, how it is used. 10,000 feet level now as we come a little closer to. I think there's a lot of technicalities that need to be vetted through the manager, myself, the solicitor, finance director. Had conversation with bond counsel and our financial advisors recommended that we enter an agreement with Unicap. Unicap has done the tax increment district, Providence. Well, they're recognized to be a national leader with respect to advising municipalities on this program. Some statutory requirements that have to get here too, but just understanding the finances and projected revenue of the project and then how much risk the town would be exposed to is something that they.
And the costs attached to this service are, who covers those
Typically,
ultimately?
the costs for these are part of the transaction fees at the end of when they actually the TIF is put together. So we ultimately, it's going to be the responsibility of the developer to pay for the advisory fees.
Did we go out for an RFP? Is this under the master price agreement? Did we bid it? How did we get into this agreement?
This is really a sole source procurement. This is the guy that does it.
And so ultimately, over the course of 3 phases, this could get close to $90,000, $100,000.
Yeah.
All right,
That's typical.
all right. And there's the hourly rates here and fee schedule. This will get us through a lot of different projects.
I mean,
Okay.
we talk about having a tax increment district.
Okay. Well, I'm going to do it.
Okay, I will make a motion to authorize the town council president to sign the agreement for the consulting services Unicap for advisory on the tax increment financing district. Subject to approval by the town solicitor.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have approval and authorization to purchase a Kohler Model 145 REOZT4, the 208-600V diesel mobile generator set from Kraft Power Corporation. It will cost $76,300. And this is going to give us some security and comfort when bad weather and power outages occur.
If I can just butt in on this one. Thanks to Bob for applying for these funds, the Resilience Fund through the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. This was one of the projects that came out of the municipal resilience program that we participated in as a priority need to make the community more resilient. Just anecdotally, when we had that Sunday storm that came through, that hurricane that hooked off at the last minute and mostly spared us, one of the only properties that did lose power was the Wood Street Pump Station, which happens to be our largest sewer pump station. We do have a generator on site. The generator was giving our wastewater folks some agniage, who in turn were giving me agniage by calling me and telling me that they really hope the power came on soon because
Is that like agita?
it is,
Okay,
it's Portuguese agita.
I got you.
Yeah,
Okay,
so we were made aware that if that generator were to go out at the Wood Street Pump Station, that we would have sewage surcharging through the manholes within an hour. So that put the emphasis on the need to get this generator in town as quickly as possible. And it is sized to service all of those pump stations as needed, including our largest station over on Wood Street.
I see the voltage here. How many kilowatts is it? Does anybody know? I'm sure it was sized adequately. Yeah.
On your desk, you should have supplemental information about the generator itself.
12-volt engine, starting batteries.
It was sized for the
Probably
assistance.
140,
Yeah, I think
45,000. That's where the 145 comes. 130 kilowatts right here. Yep. Okay, yeah. And we're sure that's enough to run the pump stations.
We did size it with the help of our wastewater engineers and our wastewater folks.
And we did go out to bid. This was the only bid received. It is below the amount of grant money that we have, so that's good. But I would contribute to the manager's Portuguese agita because the lead time on this is 32 weeks.
Wow.
32 weeks.
Is that 32 to 35 weeks?
I will,
for the best.
I will make a motion that we approve the price and authorize the purchase of the Kohler generator from Kraft Power Corporation in the amount of $76,300.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Number 3, resolution approving potential future borrowing from the Rhode Island State Revolving Loan Fund, SRF, program jointly administered by the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank and the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management associated with upgrades to the Wood Street and Patterson Avenue pump stations.
My description of this is going to be the same as it is for number 4.
Right.
As the manager indicated previously, we anticipate that whenever the final infrastructure bill looks like that, there will be money that will be coming to the state for construction projects. Those projects that are already in our approved for the state revolving fund are going to get money fastest. So part of that approval process is having a certificate of approval issued by DEM. In order to get that certificate of approval requires a resolution. So that potentially if we were to have to borrow money. Remember with respect to number 4, previously you had authorized us in this fiscal year, next fiscal year to borrow up to $250,000 from the infrastructure bank. Separately, let's just say,
Yeah.
I will make a motion that we approve the resolution. The resolution to approve the borrowing from Rhode Island State Revolving Loan Fund for upgrades to the Wood Street and Patterson Avenue pump stations.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then number 4 is resolution approving potential future borrowing from the Rhode Island State Revolving Loan Fund program jointly administered by Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank and the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management associated with building efficiency upgrades at the operations building at the wastewater treatment plant. So
I will make the motion that we approve that resolution.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we will be good to go when the money is available. 5, approval and authorization for the town council president to execute an indemnity agreement with Aetna Bridge Company to temporarily store materials on site at 131 Main Street, or 1-31 Main Street. That's the National Grid site associated with East Bay Bike Path temporary detour project. So they want to put their materials there while they're doing the little,
Doing the boardwalk project, yes.
okay. And how soon will that happen?
They actually have material on the site now, but they haven't removed any pending.
Okay.
You're comfortable with the agreement? Okay, I will make a motion that we approve the indemnity agreement. With Aetna Bridge Company, temporary store materials on the site 1 through 31 Main Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
One thing, Madam President, do we want to let everybody know now that we're probably going to go 6 o'clock next month?
Okay, there is, if that is acceptable, we will be starting the meeting next month in November at 6 p.m. rather than the regularly scheduled 7 p.m. start time to accommodate licensing that will take place that night.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.